And then Atithi, Sobi, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Sobi. I'm a second year medical student here at UIC, and I'm originally from Syria.
Hi everyone, my name is Atithi. I'm also a second year part of the International Medical Student Association. I am originally from India, but grew up in the States.
And I forgot to include all those parts in my introduction. I am also NEM2, and I am from Canada. So to go over the International Medical Student Association, we are a new organization from this academic year, and really our goals are to raise awareness about the unique set of challenges that international students face, and we really want to provide our members with resources and support on how to navigate medical school and beyond. With that, we are very, very fortunate to have F1 doctors providing us with panelists to host the first ever international student panel. And we think this is going to be very, very valuable in terms of the knowledge that we have to navigate medical school. With that, would the panelists like to introduce themselves?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, you go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dimanta, and I am originally from Sri Lanka. Currently, I'm a PGY1 OBGYN resident. I'm currently on a J1 visa, so I'm a non-US IMG. I went to medical school in Kursk State Medical School in Russia, and then I moved to the United States, did a couple of years of research, and got matched into OBGYN residency.
Awesome. So my name's Sufyan. I'm one of the fourth year students out of Emory over in Atlanta. I grew up partly in Morocco, partly in Canada too. And so I've been here for about 12 years in the States on various visas. I just applied to ophthalmology a couple weeks ago, so I can kind of give a preliminary perspective on what I've done so far and how I approached applications.
Hi everyone, my name's Elisa. I am also an M4 from Emory. I'm originally from Venezuela, but I've lived in Venezuela and Panama. I've been in the US for about 7 years, mostly just F1. I'm still in F1. I'm applying to pediatrics residency now. It's due on the 20th of September, so I have somewhat of an idea of what it's like to look for it, but I guess Sufyan is a little bit more ahead of me in that sense.
Hi, everyone. I'm Renato, born and raised in Lima, Peru. I came to the States for college. I went to Texas A&M, and then I actually did my medical school at Case Western too. All of it was as an F1 student. And now I'm currently a PGY2 in ophthalmology at University Hospitals Case Western. And I'm currently on a J1 visa.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves, and we're very excited to hear everything that you have to share. So to walk through the structure of today's panel, I'm going to be spending about 30 minutes or so going through questions that Atithi, Sobi, and I have crafted. And we do have a Google form, Atithi or Sobi, if you want to pop that into the chat. And if anyone has any questions, they can either submit it using the Google form, or you can just pop it in the chat, and then we will ask your question to the panelists. So we hope that works for everyone. And with that, I'm going to get started. To start things off, what has been your experience like as an international medical student or international resident in the United States?
I mean, I can go ahead and start. So I just started my intern here a couple of months ago. My program is a small program, only 3 residents per year. So we have like a total of like 13 residents. 1 year we have like an extra 1 resident. I don't have much of a like United States like clinical experience in terms of like I didn't do any rotations in a US hospital. I didn't do any kind of like, I didn't get much of a hands-on experience here in the US hospital. So it was initially kind of like little challenging for me to understand the culture, how to work in the hospital, how to interact with the residents, like senior residents, and also how to use Epic. So that was kind of a big challenge initially. But our program was really nice. They didn't throw us into the fire like at the beginning. We had 3 weeks of orientation where we were taught like everything, how to use Epic, how to kind of like where to go, who to reach out, and things like that. So that was helpful. My program, I'm the only IMG, and in terms of requiring a visa, it did not. It didn't. It was very easy. I just had to like sign the contract, and there's a person who is designated from the CFMG who kind of coordinates the visa process. So it doesn't that hard to get the visa. Other than that, it's been fine. You can kind of like very quickly adapt and learn the ways and kind of like orient yourself in the hospital to work with the residents, with the attendings, work with the nursing staff. So it has been okay so far.
That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
I can talk real quick about our experience as medical students. I don't know. I feel like it's been kind of at some point in medical school, you forget. If you went to undergrad in medical school in the US, eventually, you kind of adapt to the program. I think now 4th year, it kind of hit that I have to think of other stuff when you're applying to residency. You have to actually think through the visas, think through what programs will take you. Is it going to be harder like it was for medical school? And stuff like that. So I think that was kind of challenging, and my school had not as much guidance for us in that regard. So I think one of the things that I did that helped me a little bit was I talked to the program director of my home program for the residency I was applying to, and talked to her about like what the process is like. Do they offer H-1Bs? Do they offer J-1s? What does that mean? Like everything like that. And that kind of helped me relax a little bit regarding the process, just because she gave me a little bit of reassurance, like it will be okay. You're as qualified as other applicants, like it will be fine. But yeah, it's been kind of a tough one this year.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think finding mentors who can speak on our experiences can be very tricky as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the next question, but feel free to anyone else to share their experience as well. And I know this was hinted on a little bit earlier, but what were the main challenges you faced being an international medical student, and how did you overcome them? We're thinking general challenges pertaining to being an international student, or other items like limited international representation in medicine, emotional issues, legal issues, professional development, or limited extracurricular opportunities, or financial issues as well.
I mean, yeah, I can take a stab at this one or a little bit. I think the first few things that jump out are like, obviously we were medical students during a pandemic, and thinking through, being able to travel or see family, things like that, were very difficult. And you often side on I often sided on the side of like being cautious and staying put, just to make sure that nothing goes wrong with the visa situation. Obviously, from a financial standpoint, not a whole lot of people, it seems like, understand the burden that they place by having international students often show that they can pay for the entire schooling up front, or pay for a full year, and trying to negotiate loans from a country that doesn't, like Canada, where the cost of education is nowhere near what it would cost to attend medical school here is challenging logistically. And then, like Elisa said, trying to get piecemeal advice from people that are older or people that have encountered a situation where they've had to sponsor an international medical student transitioning to residency. It just seems like you have to be very proactive about constantly reaching out to this web of like a network, trying to find enough advice that you can actually piece together a plan for yourself. Has been challenging as well, but I've been fortunate in that my home program in ophthalmology matched someone who was international a couple of years ago, so they're somewhat familiar with the system, and they also have pretty small network of other programs that have also accepted international medical students, so that at least kind of shows me a path.
That's good to hear. I think finding the community is the challenging part, and then you got connections built, and from there you're able to find the resources to move forward. Anyone else on challenges that they face being an international medical student and how they overcame them?
Just briefly, take it day by day. It will be okay. I don't know, like we've made it this far, you will make it further, like it will be okay. I don't think that your homeschool will let you not match, because it will look bad on them if they don't let you. So eventually, if the time comes, I think they will help.
That's fair. So are there any, moving on to the next question, are there any resources that you use that you found particularly helpful for navigating medical school or applying to residency as an international student?
I thought in terms of like a database, Freda helped a lot. It has all the programs where you can you can screen the programs based on whether they accept international medical graduates, whether they accept visas and what type of visas, and how many medical IMGs in this program. So it was helpful, but also kind of going through all the ERAS list, where that's what I mostly did. Kind of went through each program. I know it takes a long time. It takes like really like a hard work to do, but you have to kind of it really helped me to filter out the programs. Even though they say, okay, we sponsor IMGs, we sponsor H1B, J1, but they don't have any IMGs in this program. So it helped me to kind of like rule out those programs and not to apply, is kind of saving money a lot. Other than that, a lot of other forums like on Facebook, on Instagram, helped me. Most of the time, residents who matched IMGs who match into residence programs, they would like post, okay, our program accept IMGs, like we have like this much IMGs. There are a couple of like Facebook pages that help me a lot.
That's great to hear. Would you be able to share those specific pages after our panel?
Yes, will do. Okay.
We can disseminate that way. That would be super helpful. Anyone else?
I think something that I've heard is, and as interviews come, hopefully, knock on wood, come in, is that you call the GME, the Graduate Medical Education Office at the institution that granted you the interview, just to double check that they in fact do give the visa that they say they give on the Freda website. I've heard that it sometimes can change, not drastically, but sometimes can change from J1 to H1B, or they drop off the J1 situation. So that's some helpful advice that I've gotten. I think something that also helped me is talking to, like we said, the mentors in the department that you're going into. And they don't usually recommend doing an away rotation, but they helped me sort through my H1B list and figure out a program and push, kind of recommend me to that program to do an away rotation there, in hopes of hopefully getting an interview that can sometimes guarantee a second interview, other than the home program. So that's something that
I know this wasn't on our original list of questions, but are you not allowed to do an away rotation as an international student, or how does that work?
So I applied. So I think what ends up happening is because we go to medical school in the United States, you can do an away rotation as an American would, a citizen would, and the fees would be the same as they would for an American citizen. If you are an IMG, for instance, I went to Colorado specifically for the away rotation, and so I would pay set amount, like I don't know, it was like $100, I think, for my month-long away. But if I were an IMG applying, I think there might be some additional costs. So it might be closer to like $1,000 or something like that. So that's something to be aware of. And also they helped me figure out a program that is known for giving 95+% of away students an interview. So that's something to be wary of. Like sometimes you do an away rotation at a place that won't even give a lot of their students, away students, interviews.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, we will move on to the next question. I see.
I have a question in the chat. Like,
Yeah,
you can touch
we
upon.
want to do chat questions and Google form questions at the end.
Okay.
For students looking to do a research year between their 3rd and 4th year, is it possible to do that while maintaining their F1 visa status, or would they have to switch to a visa status that allows them to work as a research fellow?
Hey, so I'm doing an extra year research. So I'm theoretically in my 4th year, but I guess I'll finish the rest of my 4th year at the end of my research year. And all I had to do was extend my I-20, which honestly was not that hard. I had to get in contact with my international students office, and they just approve it. The only issue I had is, so our program allows us to go do research at other institutions. And I got accepted to in a lab in a different place. But I think theoretically you're allowed to, but it took so long that I just gave up on going there. So I think in the end, the conclusion was that either you have to do like I forget what it's called. Like it's not OPT, but like FPT or some CPT. That's right. Yeah. So you can do away stuff if you do a CPT, but then like it truly took them so long that I just had to keep my research mentors waiting for so long that I just gave up on the idea of going somewhere else. Yeah, that's my experience with research years.
Gotcha. So you have to be really proactive about them and start early.
Yeah, because I guess what I wanted to say is if you do an I-20 extension, at least for the school I'm at, it asks you to it has you like check a box where it says I cannot do more than like 3 credits away from my home institution. Like they want to make sure that you do the research at your home institution and not somewhere else.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So to clarify, were you able to make it work and still do the research year, but just at your home institution?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they approved my 20 extension, and I'm now doing. I started my extra year research.
Okay, and so if you do it at your home institution, it doesn't cut into your CPT, OPT time?
It does not, no. Our program allows us to do our med school in 5 years or 6, I can't remember. But either way, like they give us extra time. So everybody has like extra time allotted to them. And I guess if you choose to do an extra year, a lot of our class does like MPHs and stuff like that on the side. So yeah, long story short, I was allowed to. And honestly, the process for extending the I-20 was not hard for my home institution.
Okay, so it just gets complicated if you try to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. We have heard of people doing rotations at institutions. Oh, I think I've already asked this question. But to discuss it in greater detail, what is the process like of securing an away rotation? And does this have to be a CPT-based opportunity?
I can talk about the Colorado experience. So it does not have to be a CPT based opportunity. You're still technically enrolled in your home institution. So you go through the VSLO system. There's nothing that you have to clear by your international student office. And we as international students at American medical schools do not face additional costs relative to our American counterparts. I would say the big things are talk to your specialty mentors to see whether or not it makes sense for you to do one. There are only 32 programs that offered an H-1B visa, which is the one that I would like to go to get. And so for an average number of 85 applications, I think, for ophthalmology. So they said like you have to try to guarantee an interview somewhere else if you can. And through their own network, they realized that Colorado was a program that offered a lot of its OA students an interview. So those are the two main things. Just making sure that it does grant you the H-1B before applying, or whatever visa you're seeking for the away rotation, asking your mentors to help you secure that away rotation by calling whoever they need to call or sending an email on your behalf. And then third is like legally we're allowed to do them.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing. With that, I'm going to move on to the next question. What was different in how you prepared for the match from your American counterparts?
I think I can answer that one. Really, no much difference, to be honest, because when you're applying as an international student, but you went to a U.S. medical school, you're gonna be treated as a AMG, like an American medical graduate. Like there's no real difference in what you do. The only difficulty will be the visa issue, but honestly, my preparation was kind of the same. I guess the only thing that would make it more different is that you are really trying to match the first time, because if you don't match the first time, I know some schools won't let you delay graduation, and if you don't get to delay graduation, you cannot extend your I-20. So I don't know what would you do then, but I guess that was the only thing, trying to make sure that I matched the first time. But at least from my personal experiences, it was really not much different. Getting good step scores, getting some publications, letters of recommendation. That was it. Really, I didn't do much different to prepare in that sense.
That's good to hear. That it wasn't drastically different.
I think for me, the only thing I did that was different, similar to Renato, I think the preparation is similar. The only thing I did a little bit earlier is I made my match list way earlier than my counterparts, just because I needed to know what programs take H-1B, what programs take J-1, the cities I want to go to, and realistically who would give me the visa. So my list was way earlier, and similar to Sufyan, I kind of talked to mentors and stuff about it, and people who had gone to those schools and their experiences, had they seen people who were IMGs in the program and stuff like that. So it's kind of just making sure that what you have in your list is a realistic list for visa wise. But yeah,
that makes sense. I guess the biggest theme about being international is being proactive and starting early. Did your status ever come up in interviewing? And if so, how did you handle it? And did you have to tell programs that you needed visa sponsorship during interviews? Or was this already taken into account while you were creating your list of medical schools?
Yeah, so for me, when you apply, they will ask if you need employment authorization. So the programs kind of know all that already. The only few times that came up was actually when I was interviewing the program director, and they were like, oh yeah, by the way, we offer H-1 visas, we offer J-1 visas, so you match here, we're gonna give you this and that. And then the other time what it came up was more when we were talking about what made my experience in med school different from my classmates, and just talking about being an international student was actually a point of conversation for some of the interviews in a positive way. Like everyone really liked to hear the other perspective and different experiences. And then of course, like someone already mentioned before, make sure to email your DME person at the program you're applying, and make sure that the visa that you want is the one they're offering. But overall, they really don't care. Sometimes they don't even check, because when you apply, they'll get the list and it's going to be this person came from this med school. Okay, great. They don't even look at the visa status until after the interviews and when they're actually doing the rank list. So yeah.
That's nice to hear that that wasn't such a hurdle in your process of interviewing. Okay, moving on to the next question. Could you speak to the different visa paths one can pursue as a resident in terms of OPT, OPT STEM extension, J1, H1B, CAP exemption, as well as the timeline associated with these different visas?
I can talk about J1 visa. So the J1 is initially kind of sponsored by through the ECFMG. The program or the hospital itself is kind of like the hosting program. They do not have to do anything with the visa. They just simply offer you the contract and say, we just host you, that's it. So basically, it's kind of very straightforward process. There is a list of all the documents on ECFMG. You can download the PDF, and you need like your application, like your CV, visa application, and for J1, you need a letter from the Ministry of Health from your home country. Because there is a requirement in J1, you have to go back to your home country for 2 years. In order to so it's basically like exchange visitor sponsorship program. Yeah. Oh, sorry. After the residency program, you have to go back for 2 years. For that, you need to get a letter from the Ministry of Health from your home country saying that this person is in need in my home country because there is a shortage of physicians in this particular specialty. They have to the Ministry of Health. They have to upload that letter or mail directly to ECFMG. We don't have to kind of do anything with that. And then once all the documents are ready, and that's called person called I think TPL, this like designated liaison in each program. They have to upload other documents like salary stuff and contract and everything into the OASIS, like through the portal system. And then once all the documents are kind of like done, you can they send you the DS 2019 by mail directly to the program. They don't send it to you. So you have to collect it from your program. And in terms of like so my situation, I was on a H1B visa prior. I got matched into the residency, so I have to change the status from H1B to J1. So usually you can there is kind of like a time crunch that you don't have much of a time because you apply and you get matched in like March and you have to start by the end of June. So between there is only a couple of months. So between that time period, you have to get your visa and get ready to start the residency program. If you were to exchange your status while you're staying in the United States, from that island, it takes like a long time. So you might not have enough time to change that from whatever the visa that you were before. So I decided to go back to the shortest way to do that is go back to your home country, go to your embassy and go to visa interview, get your visa and come back. So that's what I did. It took me about, I had some issue with obtaining a visa appointment at my home country, US embassy. So I managed to get my visa right, like I had to start the program on June 20th. I got my visa on June 18th. So I had only like 2 days to come back to the United States and start the program. So that was the only challenge I had in terms of getting the visa. But other than that, it was a very straightforward process. There's kind of like nothing much into it.
I can also
Go ahead.
sorry, it's okay. No, so I can also talk a little bit about, because I was an F1 student while I was in medical school, and I'm currently in the J1. So as you know, when you're in an F1, you can do an OPT for 1 year, and you can actually use that for your intern year, which is what I did, because during my transition from med school to residency, it was kind of COVID was still kind of going on, and getting visa interviews at my home embassy was kind of hard. So I just decided I'm just going to do my intern year on an OPT so I can stay in the States and start on time. Which it was pretty straightforward. You apply 3 months before the start of your residency, which is around like March, and then you get your OPT card authorization, like hopefully like by maybe May or the start of June, so you can have your EAD authorization card and start working. If you go for the H1 visa, that OPT year is while they're gonna get you your H1 visa. You take step 3, take that, they sponsor for your H1 visa and you get that. And for my case, for J1, I had to actually also go back home to my home country and get the J1 visa, because that's the fastest way, like they already mentioned before. So you just have to. There's many options to do it. Of course, the H1B is it's the easiest one, at least, because you're here, you don't have to go back and all that stuff. It makes it easier, but also you can go with J1, and that OPT kind of gives you like a year of like, have enough time to get your stuff ready and all that. And also the sad thing is, I know that there's like 24-month extension or something for the OPT, but medicine unfortunately does not fall in the STEM category, so you only get 1 year.
Gotcha. That's unfortunate. And what are the pros and cons, like versus like J1 versus H1B? What made you choose the J1 over H1B?
Yeah, so when I did my match list, I was ranking more about, I tried to prioritize like H1 visas, and like, because it's much easier also down the road, because I know they already mentioned the requirement of going back home for 2 years, which you can kind of bypass if you do a waiver job at some underserved area for 3 years, and that way you can change to whatever other visa status you want. So I did my rank list and all of that. And you don't always get your top choice in your rank list, so you kind of fall a little bit in your rank list. And I fell to a program that didn't offer the H1 visa, but it wasn't a big deal because there's other options to go around that for the J1. But it's what you get. Sometimes you cannot control exactly. So if you are like very set on just having an H1 visa, then only rank programs that sponsor that. If you rank some program that has a J1, you have to accept the fact that you could be going to that program on that visa. So it's just an FYI when you're trying to make the rank list.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've definitely heard that to prioritize H1B as much as possible. But are there any cons of the H1B visa that you're aware of?
I don't think there's any cons. It's really nice because as soon as you finish residency or fellowship, you can just work whatever you want. I know some fellowships too, they will only take you if you have an H1 visa, because they need you to be able to be hired as a kind of an attending kind of way, so you can bill for procedures and stuff. So some programs will only look at H1 visas. So I would say if you can get an H1, I will go with that one. But if you get a J1, it's not the end of the world. You can still, you will still be the specialty you want to do, and you'll figure out what to do after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I talked to a lot of people like IMGs who were on J1, and none of them like went back to their home countries. They managed to find a job, as Renato said. Like you have to do like a 3-year work in a federal recognized underserved area for 3 years, and after that you can get a green card or apply for green card or things like that. So it's not much of a big of a deal. And in order to obtain H1B, you have to complete step 3 also. So I'm not sure, like a lot of hospitals right now, or the programs, when you kind of like go through their like the websites, and I encountered a lot of programs saying we do not we can sponsor J1 through ECFMG, but not H1B. Even like my program said we can like help you with the H1B, but we can't give you an we can give you a J1 but not an H1B. So it will be great to get an H1B, but again, also it's not the end of the world. There are so many ways you can bypass that waiver, get that waiver and bypass that two-year home country commitment.
Okay, gotcha. And is step 3 something that all IMGs take, or is that something that's for IMGs, or is that for international students in who studied in the US?
It's for everyone.
So you don't necessarily have to have step 3 when you apply, but if you are targeting for an H1B, you should have step 3 done. I think before the rank list, maybe, because it takes some time to kind of process that H1B visa. So you have to complete all the steps and before you apply for H1B. But in terms of like non-US IMGs, their chance of getting matched into programs kind of goes slightly high if you have done and finished step 3. But I'm not sure for like US, those who have like you guys, like US IMGs, what would it matter at all?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I would add there that when you look at some of the programs like websites, they might say H1B offer but need step 3 completed. Actually, if you email them, and it's actually, I don't know where I saw it, but it's in the website. You don't need step 3 if you are an American graduate, like an international student from an American medical school, because you will use your OPT and you take step 3 during that time. So it's no issue at all.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear. Okay.
You cannot take step 3 unless you have graduated from a US accredited medical school for people who went to school here. So
I
you
see.
have to take
Yeah.
it after May.
I see. Thank you all for your input. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on the different visa paths for residency? Otherwise, I can move on to the next question. Okay. The next question we have is, was there anything you wish you knew in terms of rules, regulations, or guidelines early in your medical school career in terms of being international?
I would have to say that how slow things can get when it involves other things other than the F1 as a student. Because as a student, it's very easy. Like I know some people that started undergrad and they just transfer like their F1 to like the medical school. It's super easy, streamlined process. But when you get into these like J1, H1B visas and you have to interact with like USCIS, CIS and all those people, things can get very slow. So just always be proactive and try to apply for things as soon as possible. Like the OPT, for example, people might think, oh yeah, sometimes it only takes 30 days. Sometimes it can last 3 or 4 months. Like it's very unpredictable how long things can take, especially in this current situation with all like the agencies being more slow and stuff like that. So just we always try to be on top of things and apply to things as soon as you can apply.
Gotcha. That helps. Okay. So with that, we conclude the questions that the 3 of us have constructed, but we noticed that there were a couple questions in our Google form, so we wanted to address those as well. So I'm just going to go in order that they were submitted. The first question we have from the audience is, are international students who graduate from US MD programs considered more disadvantaged than American citizen IMGs?
Could you repeat that?
Yes. Are international students who graduate from US MD programs considered more disadvantaged than American citizen IMGs?
Oh, I don't know about American citizen IMGs, but I've been told that by multiple mentors that the fact that I'm an international student applying into American residencies does not put me at a disadvantage relative to American citizen counterparts. So like relative to my American classmates, for instance. But I can't speak about the IMG situation.
Gotcha. Okay. The next question that we have is about how many programs did you apply to? What do you think was most helpful in your application?
I applied to every single ophthalmology program that grants a visa J1 or H1B. So 94 in total.
Sufyan is going into a very competitive specialty, which is ophthalmology. I am applying into pediatrics, and my plan is to apply to about 27, which is 10 more than they recommend for just regular US people. And I'm only applying to H1B programs with the exception of 3 programs that are J1, just because that's just my goals. And they're ranked anywhere between like, I think there's 200 pediatrics residency programs. I'm applying anywhere between number 1 to number 150 to kind of get a good spread of options.
Are most programs that accept international students H1B, or are they J1?
No,
J1,
most of them are J1.
J1.
there's 32 in ophthalmology that grant H1Bs and 62, I guess, that would grant the J1. I think it's cheaper for them to grant the J1 too.
I see. Makes sense.
There's about 50 for pediatrics that do H1Bs and close to 150 that do J1s.
Oh, wow. That's a very big discrepancy. Okay. Thank you for that. The next question that we have is, were there any questions during your interview, such as why doing medical school or residency in the United States and not in your home country?
I didn't get those questions. I think you get most of those during med school interviews, like why are you wanting to do med school here in the States? But sometimes they do ask you, do you plan to go back home sometime? And then, I mean, of course, if you have a genuine like feeling that you want to go back, maybe help something or do something back home, you can say that. But most of the time, they don't really ask many questions like that.
Yeah, same. I mean, I also didn't get such a question like why here. Like, I got like question the why this particular program, but not like why USA.
Gotcha. Atithi, Sobi, are there any other questions that I've missed?
I don't think so. And also like, I think almost all the questions in the chat were answered through the chat. So.
Perfect. I don't know if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, or if anyone has any lingering questions, they can put them in the chat now, or they can unmute and ask as well.
I just want to say one thing real quick, and this is purely anecdotal. So I'm applying in a year because I'm doing research, but I've heard from, I'm interested in anesthesia, and I asked one of the international residents in our anesthesia program, like about her experience and all that. And she said that our school officially offers the J1, but she talked to the residency director or whatever, program director, and she said that she was able to like convince them to sponsor an H1B. So maybe it sounds like a lot of people, first of all, don't even know the difference between J1 and H1B, and people that don't normally deal with these kinds of things. And then I feel like if you explain it to them, you might be able to convince them to sponsor an H1B. But again, totally anecdotal. I don't know if this is true for everywhere or, yeah.
I've heard this from other programs that aren't Emory. Emory's thing is that the department that offers the visa has to pay for it. So it comes out of their money for departmental stuff, which is kind of bad. So they don't always do it, but if you ask, they might. So it's a similar kind of thing.
No.
Yeah, I also heard that too as well. Sometimes with home programs, you can actually like talk to the program directors and say, hey, do you sponsor this? Or there's any chance you can sponsor that? And again, also, like they already mentioned, sometimes it depends on the department, but even sometimes the departments are not very familiar with the actual like politics of the entire like hospital. So sometimes if you actually look in the like the hospital like policies, sometimes it will say like, oh yeah, we do sponsor H1 visas. And sometimes you go to the department websites and they want to say we don't. So it really depends. Some programs are like very department dependent on what they sponsor, and sometimes they are more like they have to follow like the rules of the policy of like the entire hospital. So it's always good to always make sure and ask, maybe during interviews and also emailing.
Gotcha. I didn't know that, so thank you for sharing that. And one other question that I had, I guess this is more targeted towards Sophian. I'm Canadian and I'm still thinking whether I want to go back to Canada or not. Did you ever consider doing residency in Canada and what that process is like?
I thought about it for a second. You know, I've been here for like 12, 13 years at this point. I mean, the States, not Atlanta. And so I feel like, you know, this is kind of my home in a way. And so much of my support network is down here. Many of my friends are down here. So I figured it's probably a good idea to stay here, finish residency, and then transfer back over to Canada when the time comes right. I think it gets a little tricky when you are going between medical school and residency between countries. I know Canada can be a little stringent about allowing people to come back. For instance, certain residencies don't have the same amount of years. Ophthalmology is one of those that does. So thankfully, once I'm done and I'm an attending, then I can just transfer back over, no problem. But there are some difficulties there. I guess it's a long-winded way of saying I decided to stay here. I know that ophthalmology specifically is even more competitive for me to apply there as a Canadian than applying as an international student here in America, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So that also played a factor in why I decided to apply here as opposed to go back home. And the last thing is, I do know that you apply into the CARMS, I think it's called, the Canadian match system. And the Canadian match system is staggered in such a way that you go through the match system in both countries, but they interact. So the second that you match in one, you're automatically disqualified from the other. And I'm pretty sure that the Canadian match system happens before the American match system. So if you happen to match in Canada, a friend went through this process. So if you happen to match in Canada, then you are automatically like not going to be able to match at your top program in the States, even if you do prefer that program over the fifth choice that you matched in Canada, you know?
Right.
So they ultimately ranked in both systems and got nervous about that. And so they pulled their match from the CARM system and matched in America.
Yeah, that's tough. I didn't know that they interact.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends on what you're going into and all sorts of other factors. So.
Right, absolutely. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Tyler. I'm a third year medicine at Emory. I have one question. Thanks so much for your opinion and everyone's thoughts today. So just from the sense I'm getting, like, is the idea that when you match in March, you should really start the process of getting the visa figured out as soon as possible? Is that kind of like the main thought?
Yeah, that's definitely that stuff. Even before, you have to start doing research on that. And I think I answered one of the chat questions about like OPT and stuff. You can actually apply to OPT without having matched. The only thing is that it has to be 90 days before your graduation date. So, you know, it doesn't hurt to apply, because let's say you match into, you know, a program that offers only J1 and you want to go back home and get the visa at back home, you can just, you know, cancel the application. It's fine. It's not really hurting you because you're going to be changing to another visa regardless. So I would say that I would apply regardless. Even if you haven't matched yet, just apply. It doesn't really hurt.
That's great. Thanks so much.
This is a convoluted question for people who are on the J1. Do you know what qualifies as your home country? That's like weird.
Yeah, so if you mean like where you get your statement, you have to get a letter of statement of need. That should be like I think the country that you're a citizen or you lived before, or where you did med school. It's like that. So I guess it would depend on where you come from, but I know it gets kind of muddy sometimes, because I know there's some people that are like did med school in Europe and they're from Canada and they're like, which one am I gonna get the letter of statement of need, right? So it depends. Or where you're a citizen from too, you can also get it from the other citizenship.
Yeah, sometimes. So sometimes it's kind of like a hassle to go through that, get that letter. If the country, like if the Ministry of State, I mean the Ministry of Health is not aware of such things. That happened with me. I had to kind of like really push that hard in order to get the letter. Initially, my home country ministry said like, no, we don't issue such letters. And then I have to find other ways to kind of like talk to people in the hierarchy to get the letter. And so I would say, if you are like thinking of getting a J1, just try to get the letter and maybe contact your home country. Hey, I have such thing coming up and I need such letter. Because if it's get delayed, your entire visa process gonna get delayed, because ECFMG not gonna start anything without the letter. I call ECFMG multiple times saying that my letter might get delayed, and they said like, hey, there is no exception. You need that letter. Without that, you're not gonna get the J1 visa, or you're not gonna get into the program. So yeah, try to contact the people in the ministry or whatever the organization and get the letter as soon as possible. Because for me, that was the main thing that took like a really long time for me to convince the people in my home country. I really need this letter, and without that, I cannot get into residency. And they said like, I mean, I was out of the country for a while, and they said like, we don't know you didn't go to med school in this country. Like, you have to do certain things in order to obtain such a letter. And so I had to talk to a lot of people and in order to get that letter. So it's just very like really a pain. But like, if you can start it like really early stages in your application process, and even kind of like find out how to get that and what is the process and things like that, that would be helpful.
Actually, this question brought up a question that I had, that I didn't even know I had, but this might be drifting into like something that I have to ask a lawyer or something. But if you apply into a J1 program, and you, like we talked about, which one is your home country, if you have dual citizenship and one of the countries, for instance, doesn't have a statement of need or doesn't need you to come back home, or you have to clear the waiver or whatever, does that mean that you have to clear both situations by both countries, or does it automatically go to one country? You know what I'm saying?
I think it specifies the country. If you have a dual, I'm not right, but you're gonna have to double check that. Maybe it's the country where you lived for a long period of time. I think that's the requirement, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
One more question. I've heard that with the J1, the 2 years where you either have to go back or work in the federally underserved areas. What happens if you get married? Like, somehow you get a green card? Like, does that stipulation stay, or does that mean that you're now free?
No, you cannot change your status at all to anything if that waiver is not fulfilled. I mean, you get married to a US citizen, you have to do either the waiver or go back home for 2 years before you can actually legally change your status to something else.
And for the waiver, sorry, Lisa, just 1 second. For the waiver, is it still 2 years in the area, or is it longer if you don't go back?
3
years.
It's 3 years for the waiver, yeah.
So during us residency, starting the mid third year, you start looking for jobs, starting to apply for positions, and there are a lot of recruiters. So this is what one of my friends who went through the same process told me, that I was also kind of like worried, because I saw my seniors have started to look for jobs, and even like when you are like at the second or third month of the fourth year, like in my program we have like 4 years, so they already signed the contract, they already got a position. So I was like a little bit like worried, like what would be in my situation. Then I reached out to a couple of people that who who are right now kind of working as attendings, and they initially, one of my friends told me there are a lot of like sites that you can upload your kind of like CV, basic details, and they will like reach out to you because there are a lot of like federally recognized underserved hospitals in the USA. So you would be able to kind of like, I don't know, flexible and go to places that that you are needed for like 3 years. That's the only way. And the other thing, you can apply for a fellowship, but it's also going to be on a J1. And after the fellowship, you're still going to have to have that 3-year requirement if you are not going back.
If you're on J1 for a fellowship and for residency, does that mean that you now have a 6-year requirement, or is it just still 3?
No, it's just still the 3. And if you are going into a fellowship, so I think ECFMG only sponsor for total of 7 years J1, and if it exceeds that, so it's going to be like I think you have to have a discussion with the ECFMG. What's the process going to be? Because I have one of my mentors who is from India, and he is a surgical oncologist now. So he had a prelim year, and then 5 years of general surgery residency, and then 2 years of fellowship. So it took like total of 8 years for him to complete. He told me that ECFM, it was really kind of like going through like hell in order to secure a visa, like continue the J1 visa through a ECFMG. So it's something you might have to like think about in the future. But again, like seeking for positions in like underserved areas, it's not that hard, it seems like, because I as an like intern, I like put my information in one of the websites, and I'm still like getting everyday emails and text messages like about places that they would say, okay, we hire foreign grads, we sponsor like J1, we can do everything for you. So it's not like a difficult thing to secure a position once you finish the residency in order to like waive that requirement.
Also, I would just add 2 more things to that regarding the J1 waivers. First thing is, unfortunately, primary care specialties it will be easier to get a waiver there. If you do like medicine, family medicine, and stuff like that. For more of the specific like subspecialties like opto or like maybe like neurosurgery, stuff like that, it's a little bit harder to get a waivers, but you'll still find it. You just have to put more work in it. And then the last thing is also that I know we say underserved areas, and some people are imagining like nowhere, Nebraska, or somewhere like where there's nothing. You actually be surprised what actually qualifies for underserved. Like here in Cleveland, literally 5 minutes away from the main hospital, it qualifies as underserved, and you will still be living in Cleveland, which is kind of a big city compared to other cities in the Midwest, or of course not Chicago and stuff like that. But even if you're willing to maybe move somewhere like an hour away from like a big city, you can also find like a good place to work there. You know, and you won't be like away from civilization, just to let you know. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Even like my current program where it's located, I think it's also it's downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I think it's also kind of like considered as a underserved area because our patient populations is very like uninsured, underserved people. So I think like it's not like a rural area. It's just like in the same city, and maybe like like 20, 30 or 1 hour away from like from a big city. So it's not that bad actually.
That's nice to hear as well. Thank you for sharing on all of that. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. I know it's 3 p.m. right now. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to email me and I can definitely connect you. Or I know that some of the panelists also dropped their email, so feel free to email them directly as well if that's easier. With that, I wanted to thank the F1 panelists for taking their time to coming in and speaking to us. It seems like mentorship and community is really important for international students, and it seems like there are all these tips and tricks and insider knowledge that one may just not know off the bat. So we really appreciate the time and the expertise that you have and sharing that with us today. And in terms of future IMSA, International Medical Student Association activities, we're going to be hosting a happy hour soon, and hopefully that'll be a good chance for all of us to meet. I know that there are a bunch of new M1s as well. So we're looking forward to meeting everyone in the next couple of weeks. If there are any other questions in the meantime, feel free to email myself, Atithi, or Sobi, and we'd be happy to answer them. But with that, thank you so much. And we'll be sharing the recording afterwards as well.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you, everyone.